What is up, fam? My name is John. If you don't know me, I run the Tesla Owners of Silicon Valley group. We are one of the largest clubs, actually, the largest club in North America. And it's been awesome to be a part of this community for the past 4 years. A lot of you who've really followed us on um, Twitter, across, us starting this club literally October of 2018. You guys have seen our growth, and it's been an exciting ride. And ever since, this past year, as we've kind of grown, had the Elon interview, my goal has been to, do regular interviews and kind of like broaden our scope of, how we talk about Tesla and really the whole Muskonomy. And so I thought, what better way to start this off with one of our experts, Tesla Herbert, who I've come to know well over the past several months. As you know, I've been on his Twitter Spaces and really just watched some of his videos. But he's really created the name for himself, being the Tesla milestone guy. So really excited to talk to him today. But I just do a quick intro on him. Obviously, Tesla Herbert, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to bring him in. So I don't know if you need an introduction, but I'm going to give you one anyways. So
Give me one.
you're obviously a three-time startup founder and product innovation expert. You've been investing in Tesla since 2012. You're also known not only as the Tesla milestone guy, Tesla Herbert. You've also just your banners are everywhere as far as like all the milestones. Everyone is just like copying and pasting that. Thankfully, you put your hashtag in there. Otherwise, people would probably claim it as their own. But it's awesome to be able to look at something, a list of like what's to come, what's been accomplished, and really, forward-looking things. You've done it for Twitter as well, all the stuff that's happening on Twitter. So that's really exciting. But you also have a channel called Brighter with Herbert,
Yeah.
where you also interview key people in the Tesla community. So it's kind of funny. I think for the longest time, like we were just talking a little bit earlier, how you were chasing me for a while, but for the longest time, like this is something I've been wanting to do, is just talk with people within the community.
Yeah.
And so it was just an awesome opportunity. I flipped the tables and said, hey, you want to be our first interview ever? But yeah, so, thank you again for your time today. I would love to just hear about, how did you get started?
Yeah.
Obviously you're a part of a startup right now. And so how did you get involved in Tesla? How did you first hear about it? And then ultimately, like, what led you here today
Yeah.
on the whole milestone, and like what even got you to thinking of like, let me build a tracker?
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's get started. First of all, thank you so much, John. Really, really appreciate this. You're one of the first people that I followed, along with Omar and others, of course. And, I was very interested in investing in helping with the environment. So I actually put my money in this company called Ballard Technologies, 1995 or early 2000s. Lost a lot of money. So it was electrification of buses. Lost money there. Then I discovered Tesla in 2012 and just felt like I needed to get myself part of this mission. And before then, I'm a all-in Apple guy. So you can tell that I'm a startup founder. I love products. I love the thing about that I really love is being part of the thing that that moment in history when you just recognize that this is going to change the world. I want to be there. Like, I remember the first time I clicked on a web browser, the Steve Jobs presentation of the mobile phone. And then, of course, when I first saw the Tesla Roadster, hearing Elon's vision for the world, I just knew, right? This is going to be the thing. What blew my mind when he was showing the Roadster for the first time that I saw it was as he explained the scenario, right? Like, because it doesn't have an engine, there's a lot more crumple zones and it's going to be a lot safer. And because it has the battery, it can't be flipped over. And because it doesn't have any of the parts for the engine, there's no need for service. And then it just goes on and on and on. And then your mind just goes, boom. And this makes so much sense. And you can see the future right then and there. So I started investing. got really into it, followed along. I found out later that Dave Lee was doing the same thing at the same time, but he was much more involved in social media, right? He's like in part of Reddit. He was contributing information. I did none of that. I was just a watcher. I was just a reader, and I was just following along with everybody. And then in 2020, just literally a year ago, October of this year, just a month ago, was the very first time I sent out my first tweet. Believe it or not.
That's awesome. You knew Elon was going to purchase it, right? No, I'm sure.
No, but it's just I really needed to be part of it, and it was because of you guys. You know, there's this wonderful community, K10, Kim Paquette, Joy, and it was just wonderful to see this group, and I wanted to be part of it. And so I started to tweet, and I needed to find like an angle, like what is my space? Can I contribute that others are not? And I did all sorts of things. Like at first, I started with the safety, right? I thought maybe I can just be the person that sends out videos and communicating that, human pilot is really bad compared to autopilot. And so I started to accumulate these kind of tweets, and it did okay. It kind of, got me started and got spread. And then I started thinking, what is it that I love about Tesla, and what is my background? So I'm a 3-time startup founder. I love to create companies, and I'm actually a product manager. So specifically, again, it's this love for products and trying to change the world and trying to think of the future. And so it's just natural for me as a product manager to always have a timeline. Like what's going to happen in 3 months, 6 months, a year from now? What are the key milestones or features that we're going to do? And so it was actually in
that's
January.
Perfect.
It was actually early January 1st or 2nd, the hype, right? And remember this, go back in time and remember what was happening. But in December of last year, that was when, remember, Hertz deal was announced. The stock went up from 500 to 1,000 in a matter of, June to December, and it kept going up in January. So the hype was there. We were all excited. And, I just realized in January that there's all these things that we're all excited for. So I just created a small little list, like normal tweet with bullet point, bullet point, bullet point, bullet point. And then I sent it out. And then other people just said, hey, don't forget this, don't forget that. So I created my first table and then got feedback from folks. And then that's how that initially started, the very first kind of milestone list. But that's how I got involved. Yeah.
So how hard is it to keep up on all the Tesla stuff and keep that list updated? And obviously, thankfully, people in the community would love to correct or add things into it. But how much work is it? Do you have to put in to keep that list updated? As it's obviously probably changing potentially weekly, if not daily, sometimes with all the stuff that's happening with Tesla.
Yeah. Well, the good news is that there are a lot of people smarter than me, and they're everywhere. And so they're the ones that are kind of bringing up these these potential features or products and milestones. And then I see the tweets, and then I keep track of it. So it's actually not that hard. I did one time try to keep track of the key moments. And I don't know if this is something people want, but key moments, not just milestones, but like every day something happens, right? Like today, Elon tweeted out, whether or not Trump poll, whether or not Trump should be reinstated or not. Is that a milestone? No, but it's a key moment in the history. And I am interested in tracking these. And so I started to keep track of that. And that is very, very hard. I did one of them and I sent it out, and it didn't really get a lot of play. I think what I've learned is that the Tesla Twitter community, they're really more interested in what's to come and less interested in what has happened. Although as a person who cares about the history, like I don't, do you not, John, do you not feel that this is a moment in history?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the whole thing. I mean, as you know, right, we're just sitting back and watching. But yeah, I think the whole Twitter acquisition, I actually watched the latest Stephen Mark Ryan episode yesterday, where he was talking and replaying a lot of the Shamoth videos. I think the All In podcast. And to be honest, I think something clicked when I was watching that, and I realized, this is something greater than any of us understand. Because I work in the tech industry, and I live in the Silicon Valley, and so I see a lot of this stuff happening. And so what he's doing there, I think, is going to be a moment in history. This is going to be similar to Tesla
Yeah.
and SpaceX. I mean, the amount of FUD and, headliners, clickbait, CBS not wanting to be on Twitter and then coming back a day later, like you see a lot of the stuff that's happening, and people like literally they're living and hoping that this thing will fail. And yet, we all
Yeah.
know what's going to happen. We all know that he is going to make this an amazing product, no matter, but it may not fit what other people want, but we know that this is going to become something big, right? Especially with
Yeah.
X.com. So
John, if you, yeah, step back and think about this, right? Love him or hate him, people, this guy, Elon Musk, is going to go down in history probably as the most consequential person in the world. One of, let's say, the
mhm.
companies that he's making are going to be one of the most consequential companies in the world. You had the chance to interview him. He knows you. He tweets back and forth with you. You had the opportunity to have FSD beta. You were like the first non-employee to test out general AI, the birth of general AI. Like, of course, it's just autonomy, which is by itself mind blowing. But you are watching a computer, visual labeling, and then knowing what neural nets and learning, and you had the very first. So that's what happened to me was October last year. I had to do everything I can to be one of the people to get FSD beta. And so I did my safety score, and I did get it the day that they launched it out. But I had a little snafu for me. So I was trying to get my safety score, and I had to drive 100 miles, right? So I live
Oh
in
no.
Seattle. So I live in Seattle. Okay. And so I go, I'm so close. I literally only have just a little bit more to get. I'm going to get it tonight. So I thought, my brother said, go meet me my brother lives in Canada. Go meet me at the border. I'll give you this wonderful Chinese food that you want. Then you drive back. So I'm giving you a reason to drive there and come back. And by that point, you're going to get
Yeah.
your score. Well, when I got there, and he literally at the park that's on the border, and I went to the supercharger, my entire score was wiped out because apparently I was like
Oh
so
no.
close to the border. That's probably what happened.
Are
so
you
what the So what I
serious?
did was I DM'd people like Gali and Omar and Sawyer. It's like, can you help me? Can you please communicate this to somebody to just they said, they were very kind and they replied to me, but they did said, I can't really help you much. But this is, the
Wow.
community, and this is how I got connected to people. But I luckily 3 days later, I did get it. But the reason I went through all that trouble is because I wanted and I needed to be there. I want,
Mhm.
at that point, it was like 3,000 people had access to FSD beta at the
Yep.
time. And I keep repeating to people, there's like 7.5, 8 billion people in this world. I'm one of the first 3,000 that
Yep.
got to test this out. And it means something to me. And it may not mean something to everybody, but I think one day, John, you're going to sit there 20 or 30 years from now and then realize that you got to interview, and he knows you and you're part of this community right now. So I know.
No, yeah. Well, this is not an interview about me, but no, I think I mean, obviously the community, I've been a part of the community, been a owner of a Model 3. That was my first Tesla since 2018, but it's obviously changed a lot. But you've been around. You obviously sent your first tweet. Even if you've been around since 2020, you're like
Yeah.
an OG Twitter community person. And it's obviously changed a lot, but at the core of a lot of the people that are involved in the community, especially the ones that have been around, especially the 2018, like talking Earl, yeah, K10, Kim, I think Sawyer, just a lot of the Omar, a lot of people that have been around, they all wanted to help, and that's
Yeah.
what has, separated it, right? And even now, like it was specifically Trevor from Model 3 Owners Online who helped me get my first 25 VINs to start this club. He literally, I was some random guy on
Yeah.
Twitter tagging him every single tweet. And he reached out, and I think that's what ultimately makes this community very unique.
Yeah.
Um, I don't want to digress too much, but like for example, I went to Austria this past summer, and we did a really
Yes,
cool.
I saw that.
Actually,
Yeah.
it was actually posted in the Peterson Museum. They took a screenshot of the peace sign that we had done at the top of the.
That's awesome.
I think it was, yeah,
Yes.
Glossglockner, which is the highest peak in Austria, and they put it up there.
Yeah.
But the great thing about the community, whether it's people you meet on Twitter, or you can literally go anywhere in the world
Yeah.
and talk with like-minded folks, and have dinner with them. They'll take you out. The Austria Club, like I got a tour of Vienna. They just hosted me. They gave me a Tesla while I was there for me and my son to just go around. I mean,
Wow.
it's
Yeah.
just it's really, really unique community. And so like you and I haven't crossed paths a lot, but
Yeah.
we've recently crossed paths recently, and like you were just spitting information to me, because this is
Yeah.
something I wanted to start, and so you gave me a wealth of knowledge on like potentially what I should use, and so that's what makes it unique, and that's what
Yeah.
is great. Like partially using this interview is for me to get to know you better. So, and just, because I've seen a lot of, again, your tweets, the milestones have been key. It's something I can refer to and look at. And so, yeah, that's what has really made this community unique.
Yeah.
Everyone kind of is, go for it.
Yeah. I started a Tesla Northwest group, and it was just anybody who lives in the Northwest. Let's do a Twitter group chat. And we have like 60 people as part of it. And they are just very special. We have meetings and we have fun and we get to know them. And there really is a different kind of, it's like a way to make friends. And it's been amazing. Yeah. Love it. This Twitter is amazing. And this is somebody who I never got involved with social media because I have fears about Facebook, and I just didn't want to be part of this thing. And then now here I am doing it, but it's all been good.
Yeah, I mean, social media definitely has its place, and I think there's a lot of good that come from it, and obviously maybe some bad here and there. But at the end of the day, it brings people together, unlike anything else.
Yeah.
And what's unique about Twitter is, you get direct access to. There's no hierarchy. There's no. You
Right.
have to go through five people layers of communication to talk to one person, and I really think of John Legere as a pioneer of Twitter
Right.
in the early days,
Yes.
like being able to communicate back and
Yeah.
forth with him on issues that I was having, with my service with T-Mobile.
Yes.
Elon specifically with Tesla, and just being able. So it's been really amazing in that regard, that it makes the playing field flat, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but that we kind of regressed there. But going back to like, I would love for you to share with our
Yeah.
audience today and people that tune in later. I thought uh, it would be a great time for us to kind of just go through some of the key milestones coming up. I know there's a lot of Twitter hangover on the Tesla stock right now. And I think, I got pinged today from one of my friends in Europe, and they sent me a screenshot of the Tesla stock. And I said, hey, if you're watching it daily, you should not be an investor, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
This company just grew 56% quarter over quarter last, Q3. They're operationalizing, continuing to grow. It's not going to stop just because Elon is doing something else. I mean, it's kind of the same thing with SpaceX, right? He's passed a lot of the Starship work
Yeah.
over to Gwyneth. And so it's just a lot of that. But I would love to just kind of get into like what is upcoming, and then also potentially even look at Twitter.
Yeah.
As I think as Elon fans, like it's kind of funny, you start with Tesla. Like for me, it was Tesla. Then I was like, I don't want to do any of the SpaceX stuff. Next thing I know, I'm like,
You
went
did it. Yeah.
Starbase, love space, yeah. And then now it's Twitter. So it's just like
Yeah.
funny how you start with a milestone on Twitter or on
Yeah.
Tesla, and then go into Twitter. But
Yeah.
let's
Go ahead.
let's
Go
take
ahead
a
and
look.
share it. Okay. I think what you said makes sense, which is if you stop and think about what Elon is best at, right? He is best at making, you've heard him say the factory is the product. Actually, the company is the product. At this point, he has created, I haven't even counted it, right? 6, 8 companies. And if you look at the history of when he creates his next company, it's almost like 3 to 5 years. There's another company. So if anybody thinks that he's done, he's not. He's going to keep adding yet a new company as we keep going. And the way he creates the companies, as you know, you just name, Twitter, Tesla, SpaceX, Neuralink, they're amazing companies. And he's built a culture to create it. And then the company survives by themselves. And so he's really that person who comes in, builds the base, and makes it happen. So with Tesla, this is kind of the list for 2022, and it's obviously small font here, so it's not meant to be read at this point. But the point really is that we've been watching all the events of what are the key milestones for Tesla in 2022, and you can see there's a lot of green. So as the months go along and the days go along, we are hitting each of these milestones one by one, and then now there's still a lot of blue. One of the things I want to address right off the bat is people will say, but it has not made the stock rise. And my answer is that if you watch carefully what I've been saying for a long time, I call these milestones. Only some of these are catalysts. You and I should talk about which one is a catalyst, which ones aren't. But generally, I track milestones, and some of them should be catalyst. Having said that, it is true that the stock has fallen from the beginning to end. I'll address that shortly when we get to that point. But right now, let's just go through each of the key parts here. And so you can see that the two red ones right now is, Q2 earnings with record revenue. It was record revenue. It was record earnings. And the only issue was the delivery numbers were less, as everybody knows. And it's explained because of Shanghai. And then Twitter overhang lifts. I turned it to be, it has not lifted. And again, I think you and I talked about that we should actually address that shortly. So let's go down the list here. And so this is the what's happening now, right? We just had our Q3 earnings with record revenue. That was done across the board. It was amazing. It was the most epic earnings call we've ever seen. I think we all agree.
You should say that again.
It is the most epic earnings call we've ever heard or seen. He had reiterated the 50% guidance. They talked about the fact that they're going to, the Cybertruck and Semi are on track. 4680s are moving along. Just everything you wanted them to say, they said, and they were on track. It was amazing. And yet, of course, the macro kept everything down. Is there not a Twitter overhang? The issues that are flying into place. So we didn't see the results of that. And when I look back at all the milestones over the years and looked at what happened to the stock price, and surprisingly, I do not see Elon's tweets causing a stock price. It might move it 1 day or 2 days, but what really moves it is the earnings. And if you follow along for the last few years, after every earnings, it's not only an increase in the stock, but it's a sustained increase over months. This year clearly is an anomaly, and there's a massive recession, inflation, then a recession happening. So we all know that the macro hit it. Then there is the Twitter, and we could talk about what is the impact of Elon buying or considering buying Twitter. But I truly believe that it is a political, emotional issue. There is the overhang. The overhang part is this concept of, is he going to need to sell Tesla stock and therefore to buy Twitter, and therefore we're going to see the Tesla stock price go down? That's actually, for me, a small part. The bigger part is clearly the fact that there is a political issue here that people are upset that he's buying Twitter, which is a control of the public, communication forum, and he has the ability to change public sentiment and others. And I think that there's a lot of people who pulled off, and it will not buy Tesla, will not buy the stock. We can talk about that, but so these are the things that are happening. Tesla Semi deliveries is happening December 1st. And again, it's being overshadowed, but we are hearing stories and rumors that there's going to be 100 Tesla Semis already going to be launched this year in December. People were thinking 8, maybe 20, 25, because the Tesla Pepsi was 2025, but we'll see what ends up happening. But this is good news, because what does a Semi represent? It represents 4680 batteries. It represents, well, actually, it may not, right? Actually, I'm sorry. There is a variant that's, but it just represents the fact that, it's now going to be on track and moving along, as well as Cybertruck. Everybody's still saying that that's still on track as well. So I think that the Semi deliveries coming out, whenever these things happen, I still don't consider them to be catalysts. Whenever there's a product demonstration, like when the AI Day 2 came out, I was already saying that that's not a catalyst. So again, I think it's dangerous for any of us to think that this is going to be a catalyst. After this event, we're going to see the stock pop or not. That's not the point of this. This is just, is Tesla delivering on its progress? And yes, they're delayed in some things that they promise, but at the end of the day, these are very important, very big, very game-changing milestones that are happening, and they're important. So yeah, Tesla semi deliveries. The next one is Master Plan Part 3. I had it up early, top, closer to the top, only because he had already said that it's, coming in a couple of months. I think it's been delayed for a couple of reasons, but probably the main reason is because of the Twitter, his purchase of Twitter, and and I think that sort of the macro is impacting. But I still expect him to announce the Master Plan Part 3 by the end of this year. What's your thought, John? Are you thinking it's going to be this year, or do you think he's pushed it off?
Well, I think, could we back up? Could you explain to our followers what the Master Plan 3 is?
Oh yeah,
For those that don't know.
sure. I actually have been tracking Master Plan Part 1 and Part 2 as well. But basically, right, what Elon does, which is brilliant, he comes up with his master plan, and he typically shares it in a blog post. He actually does not do a video. It's not in some sort of demo video event. It's just a blog post, and he explains what is the goal and the mission for Tesla for the next 5+ years. And so Master Plan Part 1 was, build a Roadster, a high expensive car, but then build a less expensive car, like the Model S, and then build a more affordable car, the Model 3. And that's exactly what he did, right? He hit them all out of the park. Then Master Plan Part 2 was, right, to create the energy division, to be able to create the robo-taxi and AI, the FSD, to be able to roll that out. And it's questionable whether or not those are completed or not. And so should he already start talking about Master Plan Part 3 or not? But in his mind, the Master Plan Part 2, and I don't have the slide to show that to folks, but he has completed that in his mind. So while we're waiting for it to actually complete, he's already ready thinking Master Plan Part 3. And what he has said is that he's thinking globally of how Tesla is going to solve the energy dependence on Earth. And so he's really thinking big. And this is the thing that I think, we need to remember is, imagine what Tesla accomplished in the last 5 to 10 years when they were a struggling startup without any money and losing money every single year. It was only the last couple of years that they started to finally break through. And yet they accomplished so much. They rolled out massive game-changing products. But now they're spitting cash. They're a cash machine, earnings machine. And they've got 4 gigafactories already up and running. So it's like, it's crazy to stop to think about what are they going to accomplish now that they have this amount of money in hand and the knowledge that they've created. So his thinking massive, and I'm expecting him to think so he's already dropped hints and announced that they're going to do a Tesla refinery in Texas, and that they're going to get into mining. So the rate limiting step at this point is the elements, right? The energy minerals. And so they're going to probably also announce 2 gigafactories is what I'm expecting by the end of this year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, kind of stepping back to your question on Master Plan 3, I mean, even for him to have Master Plan 3, that, it's not necessarily something, obviously he's got to write it, but obviously Tesla's already thinking probably, or they already have the roadmap of what the Master Plan 3 is. They're working towards that.
Yeah.
I would say right now, like, his focus is all hands on deck. It's probably, I think he's
Right.
handed off the Starship mission. Right now, he's focused on probably the autopilot still, because in the Bay Area, the good thing is he can still go between Tesla and Twitter. Like, they're only probably like 35 minutes apart. So I think he's very focused still on on the autopilot, but very focused on Twitter right now. I mean, it's all hands on deck.
Yeah.
And I think you were going to talk a little bit about it, but I think, after I think they said 85, 75% layoff ended up, or 85, whatever the number was, that the good thing about this is that every new employee will now understand the mission and what they're working towards and the work ethic that's ahead of them before they accept the offer versus, I
Yeah.
think it was potentially a big wake up call for a lot of the current employees there. But yeah, I think definitely they're gonna continue to do big things. I mean, I think energy is probably one of the areas that they haven't, I think, fully unlocked, especially the stuff that's happening with the Austin freeze over, right? Like having
Yep.
having all those mega packs that could have potentially kept things up and running.
Yeah.
I mean, they're already providing. I think Kauai is essentially running off of the mega packs right now.
It is. Yeah.
PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, has a
Yeah.
huge mega pack factory in Moss Landing, which is close
Yeah.
by, probably an hour away. So it'll be really exciting because I think pretty much every country, every state is a potential customer. Every country outside of even the US is a potential customer. So I think, I do get really excited when they get to ramp this. Actually, last Thursday, I met up Joe from San Joaquin Valley, Tesla owners of San Joaquin Valley. We met up at the Mega Pack factory in Lathrop, and so it was
Yes.
really cool just to swing by. I mean, this thing's only an hour, 20 minutes from the Bay Area, and I just swung by, and it's pretty insane just to see, because out there they have not only the Mega Pack factory, or the Mega Factory is what they call it, but they also have a huge part of the factory for a lot of the parts that they build within inside the Tesla, like door handles, part of the
Oh.
seats, everything. So it's just really, really cool to see that. But I think the energy and battery segment
Yep.
of Tesla is, again, just that business alone. Obviously, people will complain about it being like a huge money loss, but just unlocking that, making that profitable is something that is still yet to be seen. And I think I'm really excited about that. But yeah, I think a couple factories, like you said, we're going to launch a couple gigafactories, or at least the locations should be announced hopefully sometime this quarter, if not maybe Q1 at this point.
Yeah.
But at this point, I think it's just about, as you said, like they may be delayed on some things, but they continue to execute. It may not always be on the original Elon time, but
Yeah.
they continue to execute, right?
This I'm glad that you brought up Lathrop, California's mega factory, because that was something that it was amazing that they kind of like hit it. No, like I had it on my milestone, and because they had the groundbreaking last year, 2021, and so we knew that at some point they're going to announce that it's been launched and open. And so one day I'm just on a Twitter space and I asked Omar, one day they're going to do announce the Lathrop, California. And he goes, it's already opened. What? How did you know? He goes, it was written in fine print in one of the earnings reports. They didn't make an announcement on it. They didn't talk to anybody. Today, we are hearing that it is in full swing, right? It's in full production. These mega packs are being produced right now, and yet few people are aware of this. It's really starting to really ramp up at this point. So yeah, I agree with you. I think Tesla Energy 2023 is not just going to be a blip anymore. It's going to start becoming a significant portion of their business. And I think that when you hear Master Plan Part 3, they're going to talk about the refinery, mining. They're going to have these gigafactories
Yep.
built. Every gigafactory built, I've heard somebody tell me, it makes sense. It's going to be built on top of a mine. So it's probably India, Indonesia, and Montreal, and it makes sense. And so,
Yep.
yeah, it's brilliant. So
I
yeah, if we
mean,
go,
one last thing, but yeah, I think the thing, as you were saying, I don't think they wanted to get into the mining business or some of these
no,
other businesses. It's more of like with the supply chain issues that have happened over the past 2 years with the pandemic, they no longer control their own destiny. So as they get into these other industries that, again, that they didn't really like plan on, they control more of their destiny. And I think that's ultimately like why they decided to do it.
yeah. If we go back to the list, I'll just kind of wrap it up very quickly. That I think that in my mind, what I'm expecting Q4, as we all are, to be very good numbers, good earnings, revenue, all these things are going to be hit. Whether or not it's above or lower than expectations, that's always the wonder if that's going to hit the stock and the stock's going to rise. I personally am expecting this. I'm not going to look at the stock until at least Q1 or Q2 of next year. And for a couple of reasons. One is we've already seen what happened to it whenever you see a Tesla hitting milestones or a company doing well during a macro environment recession, it doesn't act as a catalyst. But if the same milestone happened during a boom year and the optimism and the free flow of money, these catalysts just pop and make the stock rise, and you can actually see every catalyst making a move. Right now, we're in a macro environment. So none of these events, I don't believe it's going to change the price of the stock significantly. I don't know, right? No one knows. Maybe it will. But that's why I'm waiting until Q2 of next year for a couple of reasons. One is, right, you got Q4 under belt, you got Q1 under the belt, showing that these factories are now ramped up, that get the analysts to start kind of calculating bigger numbers for 2023 earnings, and then Cybertruck. So if Cybertruck comes in June of next year, if that's delayed, sure, that's fine. But once Cybertruck comes, I do think that that's going to be a major catalyst. And I have an anecdotal story to share why that is. So I told you that I'm an investor in Tesla since 2012. I've got two brothers and a sister. And, everybody knows. First, everybody knew I was the Apple guy. That's all I ever talked about was Apple. Then I became the Tesla guy. And I went all in Tesla. I finally sold all my Apple just last year and went into Tesla. But everybody knows I'm a Tesla guy. But my brothers and sisters, they were fine with it. They'd always ask questions. But neither of them cared of Tesla, the stock, until my brother saw the Cybertruck. And that night, he not only reserved the Cybertruck, and he also then went and started investing, and he became a bull like me. And we start talking like great. So I think that when the Cybertruck comes out in real life, it will be a kind of, people will start seeing this thing and they'll go, my God, this is, they'll see how incredible this is. That's what I think might happen. So,
two things I want to make a comment on. One, I think, Tesla's best product ever, I mean, Elon said this himself, is the Cybertruck, right? It's like everything, it's just going to be one of those things that's just so out of this world that people are just going to want to have it. And so I think it's really exciting. One other question I thought, so obviously we know the tax credit is happening next year.
Yep.
Do you think that could impact the Q4 numbers and people waiting till Q1?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it will. And that's why the concern is. That's why I wasn't putting a lot of effort or credence into Q4 is going to be a blowout quarter and it's going to be absolute there, because the same thing is happening with China. Both China and US have this thing where it's going to start in January, the incentives, and so people are pushing off. But the thing that confuses me is I don't know why it's such a big deal if Tesla starts to use some of their demand levers, bundling in insurance or reducing the price, because they've raised the price 4, 5, 6 times in the last year because of the crazy demand. Even during a inflationary economy, they were able to raise the prices. So if they wanted to lower it, and it's clearly the reason they're doing it is because of this artificial demand thing, because of the incentives coming in January, what's the big deal? Right? And it's like, but people will throw FUD out and going, oh, they're lowering prices because the demand's weakening. No, the demand's weakening because of that reason you just said, not because people don't want to buy the Tesla cars anymore. So I think that they will pull more demand levers and they will still hit their numbers. As far as we know, right? That's one of the Q3 earnings. We heard basically them say that there's still 50% production and maybe just slightly under 50% for deliveries. And whether or not Troy Teslak is right and others that they think that they're going to miss it, I still, it almost doesn't matter to me, because if they do, it's cute. That's why I'm saying don't think that the stock's going to jump in January. Wait until at least Q1 or even Q2 of next year.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, no, I think your explanation comes with a lot of due diligence and just right thinking. So, but yeah, no, good, even for myself, because I think, we talked with Elon in the interview, and he literally said how Tesla was at a huge disadvantage with the EV credit, because you're talking on a $40,000 car, you're talking the difference between a $40,000 and $30,000 car, and just like the leverage that you get from that tax credit, right? And so obviously, once this kicks in, it's going to continue to help move cars, right? As and also too, there's a lot going on. Tons of companies are laying people off right now, and so if you're talking the difference of $7,500, versus a couple months, you could see a lot of delays.
Yeah.
So
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think definitely it's going to
yeah,
happen. But yeah, it's there is a huge waiting list, but the waiting list is being reduced because of production numbers are going up now. And that's the big question. But I don't think the demand is, again, just stop. Look at the big picture, right? I keep repeating. I just explained this to people that, do you or not agree that EVs have won the game, and ICE
yep,
cars are no longer going to be here? We're already seeing the demand for ICE cars dramatically falling faster than we expect, and we're already seeing the demand for EVs going a lot higher, faster than we expected. So it's very clear that every single car company is now known that EVs are the real thing. So they've Tesla's only sold two, depending on what the US and others, 2%, 3%. So
yeah, no,
it's just the beginning. The demand's not
yeah,
gonna, might soften for like a month or two, if whatever scenario you're talking about, but it's not.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. So do you want to hit anything else? But otherwise, I know obviously I want to do a time check for you, but would love to hear your thoughts on Twitter and all that other stuff. So is there
Sure.
anything
Let's do that.
else you
No,
wanted to hit here?
let's move on. I do want to address this thing about the stock price, and these things are milestones and catalysts, and nothing happened for this year. You're correct. So this is actually comes from Earl. He was trying to make fun of me. So he says he created this chart and he goes, "Here's your milestone list, and let's overlay what has happened to the stock over that year." And so it's all red, of course. He's right. He's trying to say none of your milestones really matter. And so I replied back to him and I said, well, okay, let's take a look at the milestone list from 2003 to 2021. This is every single milestone that Tesla has ever done since 2003. And you can see what has happened to the company's stock, right? So
Yep.
yes, milestones matter. The company is building, they're growing earnings and revenue and cash. They're growing their sales. Yes, you're correct. This year, nothing has happened, but just pull back and watch what will
Yep.
happen. Milestones matter. And whether or not they're catalysts, which is my definition would be, does it impact the stock in the next month, 2 or 3 months? That's something else. And I don't
Yep.
know which of these milestones are catalysts or not, except for earnings. And there is a disconnect, as we all know, between stock price and fundamentals. So this is
Yep.
the Twitter list, and it's just grown like crazy because at first it's like I try, what I actually do with these lists, I actually try not to add lists, because once it grows too long, people can't read it and all that, and they don't care. But at first it was all the things that, like several months ago, that Elon said we must do, and so there's this list. And then in the last 2 weeks, just every single day, Elon, using Twitter, would reply back and says, yes, we're going to do this, encrypted DMs. Yes, we're going to do saving videos. We're going to change super followers to subscribers, and we're going to make it default off. And yes, we're going to improve Twitter Spaces. Just like out of the, it's just amazing. So we're trying to keep track of all the key features. But, Elon buys Twitter. He eliminates the board members. It's now a private company. He had to right size the ship, so he did staff cuts, as we all are very aware of what happened there. They're losing $10 million per day. Was it per day? Yeah. Is it per day or per month?
I think it was 4 million a
Four,
day.
4 million a day. Correct. Thank you.
Yeah.
He launched a Twitter Blue subscription, but we all know there was issues with that. People making, fake accounts and so forth. There was the return of the canceled accounts. And just yesterday we saw Trump was brought back. And then he's promising the relaunch of the Blue Verified on November 29th. They're going to give it some more thought of how it's done. But some of the other things that he said that's going to happen. And so there was actually this tweet that came out, or an article by the platformer. And apparently the platformer is a credible source. And they said that based on the seating arrangement in the headquarters of Twitter, these are the 5 top priorities for Twitter right now. So one is blue verified. The second one is blue for business. The third is encrypted DMs. And then tips on tweets. And then long form notes. So these might be the top 5, high priority ones. And so that's what, tips on tweets is a great one, I think, right? Because if okay, let me pause for a second, right? Social media, typically the way it works, right, is only 5% of the population users is a creator, and 95% of users are viewers or listeners. The thing is, Twitter is very different than all the other social media out there, because in Twitter, I don't know what the percentage is, but what would you guess? 50% are creators. We're all tweeting, and the other 50% are not tweeting, and they're just reading. They don't tweet much. Yeah. But it could be around 50-50. Certainly not 5%, right? It's a lot higher than that. Now, if you then motivate somebody and get paid, just even a small, like, imagine if one of my tweets came out and it got it went viral and I got $100, right? It's going to motivate me to create more tweets, more quality tweets, the thing that people want, and so forth. And so it's going to be a flywheel. So if you can tip people on certain tweets because you really thought that it was very useful, and I use Twitter, and you do too, because it has valuable information. It is like not only the real-time information, but actually really incredibly, people who have done spreadsheets like James Stevenson spend hours and hours creating this incredible analysis, shares it onto tweets. And I'm learning things that I would never get anywhere else. And so tips on tweets, then if you share this back on again, just the whole list again. So long form tweets, but the ones that, we all know is short form videos and long form videos. That's going to compete against YouTube. Creator monetization is massive, as we just talked about.
Yep.
And then the content moderation and community notes. If they can add the community notes, which they already have, and it seems to be working, it just starts to make sense now, right? You can actually have a place where people can say whatever you want to say, but if you say something that's outright false, it will be tagged with a community note that will then kind of give it context. And what I just learned recently, this wonderful article explained how community notes works. So apparently the way it works is that there's a group of people, I don't know how they choose it, community, who can choose to be part of the kind of deciding what is good or bad. But let's say I write something. Let's say that somebody says something that's completely wrong, right? I don't know, there's something like ice is not water, it's Coke, or something like stupid like that, right? I can come in and I can say, no, ice is water. But if people, no, let's go with the world is flat. Okay. Forget my examples. I can't do that one. But point is that the community notes, the ones that's going to be picked to be the one that's going to be pinned, is the one that's not. It's not the one that's the most factual. It's the one that is most approved by both sides. Okay, yeah. And so then you need to write your community note to be something that to be it's gamified. So the one that the way you're going to write it needs to appease both sides, but yet be truthful and attached with facts. And so then it becomes up there. So anyways, it's just so brilliant, because now if this works, you can now see a world where there is. The other thing that I don't think has got enough play about something that Elon has said that he views Twitter to be able to do is this idea that he sees it as you choose your own experience. So I asked myself, why am I on Twitter, but my daughters are on TikTok and my wife is on Instagram? And for Elon to get to 1 billion users, he needs to be able to get everybody on Twitter. Why would they do it if Twitter is a cesspool of hate and fighting and debates? Yep. But if you can choose your own experience and you say, I just want, ponies and rainbows, and basically saying that I don't want to have anything negative, no hateful, I don't want the other side, I don't want to hear anything about my other political party, I just want my own. You can do that. But if you want, full on, armor and fight, you want to fight everybody, you want it all, you can do that. So I don't think that has discussed enough, and for him to explain how that might work. But I can see if you do that, then everybody will come on because they can create a version of Twitter that they want. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like you get into Netflix and then you type in the type of videos and things like you want to watch. So I could see them
Yeah.
having a content, they already have the content thing, but then just talking about like what type of threshold. And I think I forgot what words he used, but whether it was like extreme, like one side extreme, like a brutal fight or something versus
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
ponies and whatever. You could almost pick your, like, it's like a throttle, which is kind of cool. But yeah, I think that's what's unique. Where Elon is going to change the game. He's coming in. He's an engineer by trade, and it doesn't matter what the topic is, what the product is. He becomes an expert in the space, and he's doing it real time and asking people what they should do, or what he literally asked, like, what can we do better than TikTok? What can we do better than YouTube? And so I think it's pretty incredible to see like what's going to happen in the next 6 months, a year, and really three years from now. Who knows? Twitter may even be rebranded to X.com, but
Right.
you went through all those milestones, and then again, as they add in video, as they add in the creator monetization, and then potentially that throttle between like ponies to like a brutal fight, like it's just it's gonna, and then the signal messaging that adding that ability to be sending end-to-end encryption, like it's just gonna become, I think, a fan favorite of people are gonna want to be on the platform.
Well, the one you haven't mentioned yet, but we all know is actually what it is when you said X.com, is Twitter's not a social media platform and is not going to be a video platform. It is, but what it really is a payment platform. It's a financial transaction platform. It's going to take over the banks. It's going to take over his vision of what PayPal was supposed to be is going to be like is taking over monetize how the financial movement is going to be in the world. And then these things are on top of it to become the everything app. But its base is actually, so if Twitter can make a transaction, it's just a small transaction fee for all the transactions that occur, that's going to be their main revenue stream. And then advertising and subscriptions are going to be minor revenue streams. And so this is what I fully expect to happen. And I actually want him. That's why tips on tweets could be as simple as what they already have now. You can provide tips to users if you want, but few people are doing this. But it could be something even more powerful. But give them some time. It's only been a couple of weeks.
Oh yeah.
But I fully expect something like that coming soon.
One interesting thing is there's a thing called for Dogecoin users.
Yeah.
It's called My Doge wallet, My
Right.
Doge official, and it's the same thing. It has a bot that's literally linked to it. So it's like, hey, you tweeted something, I'm going to give you like 420 Doge coins, and then it literally sends it to your wallet from my wallet through a bot that happens on Twitter, and then the transaction obviously happens through the app. But a lot of these things are already in motion, and again, we'll see what happens. Obviously, there's probably some delays as far as like how fast they're moving, given some of the noise over the past couple of weeks. But
Yeah.
it's going to happen. It's just a matter of like how soon and how quickly they can ramp, and how hardcore these workers are going to work. So
Yeah.
but yeah, really exciting. But was there anything else that you wanted to comment on? Otherwise, like it's been, I guess I'll leave it there. Did you want to comment on anything else, or?
Nope, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, make sure to follow Herbert on Twitter, Tesla Herbert. Obviously, he's got the hashtag and or the @ in his name. Check out his YouTube channel as well, which is called Brighter Herbert as well. So it's just make sure to check him out. I really appreciate the time, the value that you're adding to the community through your Twitter Spaces, through your interviews, through being the Tesla milestone guy, and now the the Twitter milestone guy. So, but yeah, it's going to be a really fun journey. I think, ultimately you got to just put your seatbelt on. It's going to be a hell of a ride over the next, I would say, 3 to 6 months, especially as things are heating up. It feels like daily in the Elon world, I would say at this point, because it's no longer a Tesla world. It's the Muskonomy is the way I see
Masconomy. I
it.
like the way
So
you described that. Yeah. Thank you so much, John. Really appreciate this. And as we've been saying, this is a moment in history. But I also been saying recently that the we are going through tough times. The Tesla Twitter community, the Tesla investors, we're going through some tough times, but it's actually going to make the future that much more amazing and something more that we can relish and appreciate, right? When the stock is 5x, 10x from now, we're going to talk about this year when we went and suffered through this year. When we actually see what Twitter becomes, when we actually see robotaxi and when we actually see bots out there, we're going to remember what we went through this year. So just keep that. But thank you so much, John. I appreciate the opportunity and really glad that I got to know you finally. Thank you so much.
yeah, of course. Glad we were able to turn the tables this time around. But
Yeah.
appreciate your time. Thanks everyone for your time today. Really appreciate you tuning into the channel and following my personal journey, but also to the club's journey. And there's so many great community members like Tesla Herbert who are adding value in their own way. And so I thank you for him and his time today. Make sure you check out Brighter with Herbert. Also follow him at Tesla Herbert as well. Make sure to check out his milestones and keep track of what's happening, not only in the Tesla world, the Twitter world, as that stuff is just dynamically changing. So make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and tune in as we do more and more interviews like this.